most important thing is, what do you think? While you
I don't know what to think because I don't understand things.
can
Hey there, guys. All right, we're diving into Vati's videos, and we're branching out to Elden Ring's lore explained. Yeah. Uh, I should address first before we dive into the video. I have played through Elden Ring mostly in its entirety. I did almost beat Melania on my first fucking try. You can go see that on the gaming channel, link below in the description box, or I think I will also have a pinned comment. It is like uh the second to last the video, it is the towards the end of the second to last Elden Ring video on my channel there. Almost had her first fucking try, dude. I I think I had her 2 hits away, and I can't remember what she did that got me. But I had, I'm still butthurt about that one. Like, you know how much bragging rights I would have if I had done that? if I had done that? But anyways, I also do want to add that I am not the biggest fan of the game. Um, I did not really enjoy my time with it. Now I did do like most everything in the game that you could do up to a certain point. Essentially, once I got to the mountaintops of the giants, I just felt like everything was repeating too much. And so I was just bored really by the time that I got to the mountaintops. And so once I did the mountaintops, I went to the Halleck Tree just to fight Melania, and then I went to the wind tornado place with the dragons and shit, and just sprinted through that. Didn't really explore it much. Just went through that to get to the boss there, so that I can then go fight uh, do the final fight at Lanedale. Um, and I did not, for my tastes, I did not enjoy the way in which one, the lore and the story was. I also do not like the quest design in the game. I thought like my personal preference is if you are going to do so I personally believe that Miyazaki's game design is perfect for linear stories, for a linear world, right? Like the original Dark Souls, where it's not entirely linear world design, but it's like a pretty, it's linear. It's right. The world itself is a pretty linear world. Elden Ring's a vast open world where you can go fucking anywhere you want, for the most part, at any time. And I feel like for the way in which Miyazaki likes to tell his stories, it just did not work for me, because it's just like, it feels like you can miss too much, um, unless you use a guide. Hell, and I used a guide so that I could, like, I get overwhelmed very easily, so I used a guide so that I could actually play the game. uh, and I still miss shit that was pretty important despite following that guide. One that really frustrates me is in Ronnie's quest line, where I missed one of EG's dialogue in regards to Blythe. Um, and that one line that I missed from EG was EG essentially telling me something like Blythe, the twist with Blythe, the tragedy in Blythe's story, right? Like the fact that that is so easily missable, despite me also following a guide, just bothers me. I just really do not like that at all. Um, uh, and yeah, like that's not to say like this is me disliking the way that everything is conveyed. The writing itself, I think Miyazaki and whoever he has on his team to write his games, very fucking talented. I love the writing itself, the way it is conveyed, the way it is told to me as the player. I really dislike it. It one of the things that you learn when you take one of the things I learned, at least when I was taking a creative writing class, was there is a spectrum of how much work you should expect from your audience when it comes to the story you're telling, right? How much thinking you want them to do, right? And it goes from like no thinking to lots of thinking. Elden Ring, for me, falls too with the way it is designed, falls too much on the you got to do too much work as the player. Um, and like, and also my personal taste when it comes to like learning lore about fantasy worlds. Just give me the lore. Why are you hiding it so much? Stop hiding it so much. Um, so yeah, I also felt like the characters themselves are fine. It's just that because of how long the game is, it's like you spend so much time not talking to these characters, then like, 20 hours go by and then you go back and finally can talk to this other character again, but you only get to talk to them for like maybe a couple sentences and then you don't see them for like another 20 hours. That, like, to me, that's just like I can't connect to these characters if that's how it's done. I could connect to Ronnie because, by the way, I did the Ronnie ending. That was my ending. I could connect to Ronnie because when you do Ronnie's quest line, it is fairly compact. Like you can, for the most part, do Ronnie's quest line from beginning to end in almost one go once you unlock her. I think it kind of slows down for a brief bit. I'm trying to remember exactly what you had to do. Um, because you had to then unlock a certain part of the. Trying to remember. I can't remember. I know it gets uh broke. Like there's a spot like kind of in the middle where it breaks up, and you have to pause and go somewhere else for a while. To like level up or find something so that you can then continue on with the Ronnie's story. But Ronnie's story I felt like was, for the way Elden Ring is designed, was just honestly probably perfect, aside from the whole me missing that important EG dialogue. Um, so yeah, but I really liked Ronnie's story because when you do Ronnie's story, you spend a lot of time with the characters within Ronnie's story. You get to know them. Everywhere else, I felt like I did not get to know these people, and I spent the time talking to them all. At the very least, I exhausted all of their dialogue and went to them when something new happened, and I could see if they had like new dialogue to say, right? Like it was too things were too spread out for the story being conveyed. I felt like I think if Elden Ring was condensed, like slashed in half in terms of game time, I think it's a 60-plus hour game. The main story of Elden Ring, I don't think, is a 60-plus hour game, and the enemies, for my taste, were too repetitive after like the 30-hour game time. I was just fighting this like once I got to Lanedell, essentially every enemy after Lanedell is just repeats, which is fine, but for someone that puts an emphasis, right, like if um if you're giving me a story like Elden Ring where the story is pretty kind of like up in the air, not really present, like you're not really experiencing much of a story and it's more so gameplay focused. If it's a more gameplay focused thing, then I need more enemy variety coming in, right? And so the problem here with Elden Ring for me, this is a ramble because I needed to ramble about this and I need to make sure I'm covering my bases so that you guys in the comments, because I know you Elden Ring From Software fanboys are fucking vicious. Um, uh, it just, right, like I personally believe Limgrave and Raya Lucaria, that area, um, I personally think those two areas are like a 10 out of 10. Because they have the variety of enemies, they have the exploration where it's still fun, right? The enemies are various, um, and you're still learning the game, and the quests are most um active in those two areas at the beginning. Once you get past, right, once you start exploring like Caelid or the Altus Plateau, once you get to those areas, the quests become very spread out. and that's where it falters for me. Um, so yeah, essentially the first half of the game I fucking genuinely enjoy a lot, but past that I just get extremely bored and underwhelmed. I was really underwhelmed with the ending too. It was just like all that work, and I get that just did not feel worth it. So that is my ramble on my opinion on Elden Ring. Um, TLDR, did not like the gameplay so much and the way in which the story was conveyed, but I am still extremely interested in the lore itself because I do think that the writing in itself is strong. It's just I wish it was conveyed differently. You know, I probably could have said all that at the beginning and avoided a 10-minute rant. Anyways, but you come here, those that are fans of this fantasy author series that I do here on this channel are used to me ranting and rambling and going on unrelated tangents. So, with that said, I don't think there's anything else that needs to be said here at the beginning. You can go to other videos to hear me talk. Oh yeah, I should talk about how am I a fantasy author, because this is probably going to get new people in that are not like Warhammer 40k fans. I have written and edited 5 books. The 5th book I am currently have started the 3rd draft on, and hopefully, and I do not believe I do not have the funds to be able to indie publish to the degree in which to the quality that I would be comfortable releasing a book at. So due to that, I am currently trying to traditionally publish, and traditionally publish is a very long and annoying ass process. So that's where I'm at. I'm currently trying to find an agent at first, though I think with the current book, if I don't get an agent after a few months, or at least I don't have any agents asking for a full manuscript after a few months, I think I'm probably just going to then start submitting it to smaller publishers that accept author submissions. Because some publishers do not accept author submissions, they only accept submissions if done through an agent. Which is why I've been looking for an agent, because the agents can get you the bigger deals and the more money, so I could maybe make it a living. With all that said, get that all out of the way. Let's dive into Elden Ring's lore. Explain. This is my first Bati video.
Our story doesn't begin in the lands between. It begins in the cosmos, far away, with an outer god called the Greater Will. There are a lot of outer gods mentioned in Elden Ring. You can think of these kind of like the Great Ones of Bloodborne. They're distant beings. They're all-powerful and they're quite unknowable.
I kind of only know of the Greater Will
by design. But many of these outer gods want to make their presence felt in the world. The Greater Will, maybe most of all. To this end, it sent a golden star hurtling towards the lands between. The Elden Star's incantation tells us that this golden star was bearing a beast.
Ooh. Oh shit, is he gonna... Okay, if Vati explains, like, not only the lore itself, but he also says, like, you can find this information here and here within the game, that's great. I love that. That's another one of the problems that I had with the way in which the lore and stuff is conveyed. On paper, great idea. I think the way it is executed, and just Elden Ring from Software games, in my experience, I mean, I've watched essentially every single one, here and there, but the only ones that I really know the story of are Sekiro and Elden Ring. Sekiro, I tried playing, I sucked at, so I stopped, but then I just watched people play it because I was really intrigued by the story. Personally, Sekiro would probably be my favorite of the From Software games in terms of story. But From Software has a very clunky menu system, in my opinion. And so for me to access the lore, right, I would always have people on the Twitch streams be like, you can find this information here and here. And it'd be like, I'd have to press like 10 fucking buttons just to read then 2 lines of lore, at most 2 lines, maybe a sentence, right? Like, of cryptic lore at that, too, right? It's cryptic. You gotta essentially find everything to then be able to parse the information together. That, again, too much work for my tastes, for the player, in my opinion. And so I feel like it would have been better just be like, all right, the idea is good, but the execution bad. Should have just done it like in a, I don't know, a lore page, just like when you hit the main menu, it's like how some most other open world adventure games just have like a documents page or whatever of lore, and maybe as like you find and maybe it's like, I don't know, this is me riffing off the top of the dome here. Maybe as you find different incantations or things, more text becomes unlocked in that segment, because then it gets across the same thing that they're trying to do, I feel like, for by having the text be essentially only found with the item in your inventory. But I think it's more than, as you're unlocking everything, it's more like right there. Everything you've unlocked is right there in one easy place to find. That's essentially what I want. That's essentially, honestly, my biggest gripe is like, I just want one spot. It's not a big ask. I just want one spot where the things I've found and the lore that comes with them can just be found in one easy spot, and I don't have to go to like a fucking wiki to see this stuff. Because wikis are written by fans. I want the makers of the game to tell me this information, not fans going through the game and studying it like it's the ancient texts lost in Alexandria. No. I want the writers of the game to tell me this information and make it accessible for me to find and read. I don't want to go through like 5 different menus to read this text on this item, and then I have to go to this other item to read more of that text to get the bigger picture of what's going on with like the incantations or whatever. I don't want to do that.
An Elden beast. The Elden Remembrance calls it a vassal beast of the greater will.
Because in my playthrough, I didn't feel like I got any. I had no, like, for my playthrough, what I'm remembering of the story and stuff that I had gone through, I don't remember getting any hints about there being some fucking Elden beast. I don't. Right, like.
Didn't know, a vassal is someone who holds land on behalf of their overlord. Obviously, this is fitting in this case, because the Elden Beast occupied the lands between on behalf of the Greater Will, and was a living incarnation.
Okay, so he is putting the sources. That's really good. That's really fucking cool. See, I can respect that from Vati. Right, I can make my complaints about the game, but then I can still fucking respect people like Vati going in and be like, this is where you can find it if you want to in the game.
Of the concept of order. As such, this beast would later become the Elden Ring. The Elden Ring itself is made up of runes of power, some great, some small, that together represent a sort of logic for the world to follow. Thus, the Elden Ring represents order. The true nature of this order is a subject of constant debate and research undergone by fundamentalists. But 2 of the key fundamentals are the laws of causality and regression. You can think of the law of causality as cause and effect, where actions have consequences, and those consequences are new causes that branch out into infinity. These are the relationships between things. Then there's the law of regression that states that all things eternally yearn to converge and return to their
Bach is best friend.
Roots. Fittingly, then, the Elden Ring is housed within the Erd Tree, which towers over the lands between. But it's very important to stress that life in the lands between did not begin with the Erd Tree, the Elden Ring, or the Elden Beast. No, the lands between were occupied well before the Greater Will came. There were other beings here. There were other factions here. There were other gods here. And there was even another great tree here before the Erd Tree. And this is where a huge twist regarding the Erd Tree comes in. So, There are incantations in the game called aspects of the Crucible. According to their descriptions, these are manifestations of the Erd Tree's primal vital energies. And I quote, "They are an aspect of the primordial crucible where all life was once blended together." But how could all life be blended together in the Erd Tree if the Erd Tree appeared after life existed? Well, there can only be one answer, right? That the Erd Tree is a parasite, and it took over a tree that existed here
I think I remember hearing something about the Erd Tree being a parasite. I think.
before. This ancient tree was called the Great Tree. So the Great Tree was
Fuck Crucible Knights. Fucking hate those things. They make me angry.
almost certainly the location of this primordial crucible, and it must have been a very powerful primordial
I remember fighting this guy too. This dude kicked my ass once, and then I went and kicked his ass.
force for the greater will to have commandeered. It might even be the reason the Lands Between is important to the greater will in the first place. It also explains why spells and enemies related to the Great Tree's crucible would eventually be looked down upon. For example, the Knot Talisman is fashioned from a knotted vestige of the crucible, and it was considered a signifier of the divine in ancient times, but is now increasingly disdained as an impurity as civilization has advanced.
Oh, I fucking hate this castle, man. I hate this castle.
Enemies related to the crucible are the Omen, the Misbegotten, and the Crucible Knights, and
Crucible Knights.
all three of them would be shunned, enslaved, or imprisoned. Those who speak for the Erd Tree don't want you to know its roots, so to speak. According to the spell, Protection of the Erd Tree, in the beginning everything was in opposition to the Erd Tree, but through countless victories in war, it became the embodiment of order.
In Marika's own words, the Erd Tree governs all.
Mummy.
The choice is thine. Become one with the Order, or divest thyself of it, to wallow at the fringes, a powerless upstart.
But the Greater Will needed more than a big tree. It needed loyal agents in
The two fingers are fucking gross.
the Lands Between. To this end, it has the Two Fingers, who are its envoys. The Two Fingers heirloom has a weird picture of them, but it reads, "Of course, fingers cannot speak, yet these are eloquent. Persistently they wriggle, spelling out mysteries in the air. Thus did we gain the words of our faith." These words are interpreted by the finger readers. These are the undying old crones that you would have found throughout the Lands Between. They pass down the wisdom of the Two Fingers, or at least they used to.
Your fingers, please, your fingers. I can read them.
Most of them appear to have lost their purpose, and they're desperate to read your fingers and tell you annoying riddles, since their two fingers are likely dead. And yes, of course, there are multiple sets of Two Fingers. You would have found their corpses on the tops of the divine towers. Atop these towers, you loot the fingers in order to activate the true power of a great rune. Specifically though, you are giving benediction back to your great rune. You're taking a blessing back from the two dead fingers, essentially. This is just one of many blessings that the Two Fingers can bestow, and my point is kind of that the Two Fingers
Ronnie, who goes to great lengths to slay her own two fingers.
clearly have more than just influence. They have real power on some level. The Greater Will needs these powerful envoys and agents because, while it's obviously incredibly powerful, it does seem limited by a few things. First is space. The Greater Will didn't come to the Lands Between itself, it sent an Elden beast to do its bidding instead. Second is time. There is a moment later in the game where your pair of Two Fingers go still because they're forced to commune with the Greater Will for guidance.
When they are finished, the fingers will again offer their guidance. But thousands, if not tens of thousands
Oh yeah, that's after you. Is this after you burn the Erd Tree?
of
The room is on fire.
moons must first pass. No matter for me. But you, how will you ever manage to wait?
So the Greater Will needs a physical manifestation of order. It needs envoys to convey its will, but what it also needs is a god. Introducing Marika the Eternal. I have this utterly...
Oh my god. No fucking way, dude. What the fuck? Dude, I've got nothing but respect for this though. Like wow.
enormous mind map of Elden Ring's lore, and there's a reason she's at the center. She's essentially the equivalent of Gwyn from Dark Souls, except unlike Gwyn, Marika didn't just crawl out of the dark and find power. To an extent, it seems like she earned it. We don't know much about her origins, except that she is of the Numen race, which is actually an origin that you can choose in the character selection screen.
Oh.
Numen come from outside the lands between, and are supposed descendants of denizens of another world, long-lived but seldom born. At some point, Marika was chosen as an Empyrean. What is an Empyrean? Well, an Empyrean is a being chosen by the Fingers as a candidate for godhood. As an Empyrean, Marika received the aid of a shadow to do her bidding. So what is a shadow? Well, it's a wolf, shadowbound to its Empyrean by the two fingers. Luna Princess Rani is another example of an Empyrean with a shadowbound beast. You would have met Blythe. These creatures are the Empyrean's very own shadow. They are completely loyal to their needs and, by definition, incapable of treachery. Marika's shadow was a beast called Malakath. Every Empyrean uses their...
I beat him on... Is it the second or third? I think it was the second try I got him. Gamer. I was strength build. I just bonked.
shadow in different ways, but Marika's sole need of her shadow was as a vessel to lock away destined death. So what is destined death? Well, according to Enya, it's the rune of death.
The rune of death goes by two names. The other is destined death.
We mentioned earlier that the Elden Ring is made up of runes, and at some point, maybe when she was chosen as a god, Marika plucked the rune of death from the Elden Ring. She gave the rune of death to Malakath, her totally loyal shadow, who bore a black blade imbued with this rune. It's kind of genius, really. In a single act, she removed the concept of death from the lands between, while also commanding total control of death through her shadow, who could deliver it at her whim. Now, some of you might be asking, if death is removed from the
Don't you hurt the dog.
lands between, how come I can kill this dog? First off, shame on you. Second, from a lore point of view, that dog isn't really dead. It's simply in the process of its spirit, or its soul, returning to the Erd Tree. Catacomb dungeons, for example, are specifically constructed near the roots of the Great Tree for this reason, so that the Erd Tree can reabsorb their ashes back into it. This process replaced the concept of a death that you were destined to have, but this random spirit outside of a catacomb dungeon says it best. As another example of this theory, when you kill a major boss, you receive a remembrance of them. These are spirits, and they are hewn into the Erd Tree. In this way, thanks to the Erd Tree's grace, their spirits are immortalized, in a sense. This new form of death also explains what's happening when you summon spirits
from ash and return to the Erd Tree.
However, some spirits never return to the Erd Tree, and they rise within death as
This is also partly because of death root, which we will address in another video. Oh, beans.
corpses or skeletons instead.
Unthinkable are hollow.
So this was the new order, and it's important to stress that it was in this moment, when the rune of death was removed, when destined death was taken, this is when order became the Golden Order.
The forbidden shadow plucked from the Golden Order upon its creation.
Specifically, this was Marika's Golden Order. So not only did she become a god and a vessel for the Elden Ring, she became renowned as Marika the Eternal for her removal of destined death. It was a huge part of her character and her reign as well. However, Marika had more than just death to conquer. She had wars to fight, as the world was occupied by many forces that could threaten her Golden Order. There was war with the Stormlord, who likely ruled over Stormvale. There was a war with the giants, who were masters of a flame that could burn the Erd Tree. There was war with the ancient dragons, who incidentally had stones that could twist time and thus slay a god. And finally, there was war brewing with the Carrion royalty, who had previously obeyed laws which contravened the Golden Order. Thus, sort of similar to how the Greater Will needed an Empyrean to enforce its will, Marika herself needed someone to wage war. So, there was to be a husband, a consort, an Elden Lord. The man chosen was Horalu, a ferocious warrior who became known as the Lord of the Battlefield. His crown was warranted with strength, and while it was for this strength that Marika married him, he was also required to take a vow to conduct himself as a lord. To suppress the ceaseless lust for battle that raged within, Horalu took the beast regent Sarosh upon his back. You'll notice this is another example of a beast being given for the purpose of serving order. Thus, in this moment, he went from being Horalu, warrior, to Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, consort to Queen Marika, and a certified demigod. Godfrey and Marika had 3 demigod children together. There was Godwyn the Golden, who you saw being killed in the opening trailer.
Now, I want more explanation, though, on that one.
And there were also the reviled Omen twins, Morgoth, who guards the Erd Tree, and Mohg, who became Lord of Blood.
Yeah, I did not kill Mohg. I just didn't bother going to Mohg's place. I just went to Windy Place, killed Malekith, and then went straight to the capital after that to finish the game.
You might think that Godric was another demigod child, but he actually wasn't. Instead, he was probably descended from Godwyn. Anyway, we'll talk about the demigods more in detail in another video, so subscribe for that. But for now, just know that Godfrey and his offspring were the first demigods, henceforth known as the Golden Lineage. In his wars, Godfrey led his 16 Crucible Knights into battle, who were named so for they fought with the primordial powers of the Erd Tree. Their incantations were aspects of the Crucible itself, and they likely fought giants, dragons, the Stormlord, and more to usher in their age, the age of the Erd Tree.
In Marika's own words, "Hark, brave warriors. Hark, my Lord Godfrey. We commend your deeds. Guidance hath delivered ye through each ordeal to the place ye stand. Put the giants to the sword and confine the flame atop the mount. Let a new epoch begin, an epoch glistening with life. Brandish the Elden Ring for the age of the Erd Tree."
The Erd Tree would go on to be largely seen as a blessing for all of those in the lands between, especially those close to it in Leyndell, the capital city of the Erd Tree. The tree bestowed blessings. For example, the dew that dropped from its branches were like jewels. It loomed overhead as a constant reminder of order, and its roots reached far and wide, relieving many of the burden of death. In fact, Erd Tree burial was one of the highest honors a hero could receive. One by one, the previous factions of the world fell. The giants were put to the sword, and their fell god was killed by Marika herself. The ancient dragons broke down the walls of Leyndell, but met fierce retaliation. However,
Yo, that fight with this dragon, fucking intense. This is the dragon, I think. Yeah, this is the one that like summons lightning or whatever the fuck. This dude was fucking intense. He kicked my ass, I think, twice when he first flies in when you go into the Altus Plateau for the first time. But then, when you find him the second time, I think I got him first try. No, was it second try? I think it was second try. Yeah, it was second try. Man, was I sweating. But then, like, after you fight him, all the other dragons are lame. The dragons are just so repetitive, too. That's another example. It's like, the dragon fights are so epic, like, the first 2-3 times, but after the third time, for me specifically after this dude, I was just like, I want to be done with these things. They're just don't like it anymore.
However, I think the House of the Erd Tree encountered the most trouble against the land to their southwest, Leonia. Here, the House of the Moon repelled their offensives time and time again. And I mean that literally, because there was not just one but 2 wars fought here, and in both of these, there was no victory for the Golden nor for the Moon. And I suspect it was probably because of these lobsters. These damn things can snipe you from like a
It does. Thank you, Vadi.
mile away, and it's bullshit. Actually,
It is. I don't even think I killed a single one of those things. Or I only killed one because it had probably like a talisman or something that I wanted. That my guide told me to get. I can't remember. Or like I had to kill them to just grab something I can't remember. Yeah, fuck those things.
it was probably because of the Carrier Knights, who, according to their weapons, were able to wield sorcerous battle skills, and despite numbering fewer than 20, this power made them a match for even the champions of gold in battle. These enchanted knights were anointed by the Lunar Queen, a young astrologer who went on to establish the House of Caria as royalty in this land. With her bewitching lunar magic, she won over the Academy of Raya Lucaria, where glintstone sorcery was studied, and united the Carian royal family and the learned scholars of Raya Lucaria defended their home from the golden aggressors. At the head of this great golden army was Radagon.
Lord Radagon was a great champion, possessed of flowing red locks. He came to these lands at the head of a great golden host when he met Lady Renala in battle.
These two champions clashed, fell in love, and joined their houses.
Radagon once cleansed himself with celestial dew, repented his territorial aggressions, and swore his love to Renala.
I remember
the
this
Order of the
dialogue.
Erdtree and the Fate of the Moon were conjoined, and all the wounds of war forgiven.
You might think it strange that the Greater Will would permit this union, but it's not too odd, all things considered. As with most From Software games, sorcery and faith are just two sides of the same coin, and both of these powers stem from the cosmos. Radagon and Renala were known to have 3 children together. Lunar Princess Rani, who
My wife.
inherited her mother's propensity for lunar magic, Radan, who took after his father Radagon and would go on to master gravitational magic, and Rykard, who pioneered new hex sorceries and would go on to feed himself to a great serpent.
Fucking weirdo.
It follows that at some point after this, Marika began to harbor doubts. Doubts about the Golden Order, that she had had a hand in creating.
In Marika's own words, I declare mine intent to search the depths of the Golden Order through understanding of the proper way. Our faith, our grace is increased. Those blissful early days of blind belief are long past. My comrades, why must ye falter?
And it's at this point that we should talk about Marika's motivations, her character.
Okay, yes, we should.
This is surely going to be one of those huge points of debate in the coming years, but for now, my working theory is that she wanted to discover the truth behind order and the truth behind the greater will, and she believed that bonds had to be broken so that they could be better understood. She believed that there was great meaning to be found in hardship.
Queen Marika has high hopes for us, that we
Oh, traitor bitch.
continue to struggle unto eternity.
For Lord Godfrey, his struggle ended at the end of his campaigns. According to his armor, he led the war against the giants, faced the Storm Lord alone, and then there came a moment when his last worthy enemy fell, and it was then, as the story is told, that the hue of Lord Godfrey's eyes faded. In truth, he was robbed of his grace. Then Marika sent him away.
My lord, and thy warriors, I divest each of thee of thy grace. With thine eyes dimmed, ye will be driven from the lands between. Ye will wage war in a land afar, where ye will live and die.
This became known as the Long March of the Tarnished, as Godfrey and his tarnished descendants walked away from the lands between. But Queen Marika absolutely had a plan here, that Lord Godfrey and his descendants would one day return stronger, having struggled outside of grace.
Then After thy death, I will give back what I once claimed, return to the lands between, wage war, and brandish the Elden Ring, grow strong in the face of death. Warriors of my lord, Lord Godfrey.
Soon after, she found a new husband. Either that or a new husband was found for her.
When Godfrey, first Elden Lord, was hounded from the lands between, Radagon left Rennala to return to the Erdtree capital, becoming Queen Marika's second husband and king consort, taking the title of Second Elden Lord. The mystery endures to this day as to why Lord Radagon would cast Lady Rennala aside, and moreover, why a mere champion would be chosen for the seat of Elden Lord.
Whatever the case, as a part of this union, Radagon's prior 3 children with Rennala became demigod stepchildren, granted grace thanks to their new family
Godfrey became a demigod in the same interview as new relation.
tree. Rennala was broken by this, and so was her country, Leonia. The Queen's set reads, when Rennala, head of both the Academy of Raya Lucaria and the Carian royal family, lost her husband Radagon, her heart went along with him, and then those at the Academy realized that Rennala was no champion after all. In the wake of Radagon's betrayal and Rennala's poor judgment, Leonia struggled with civil war, with the Academy of Raya Lucaria on one side and the Carian royals on the other. And it's here, during the age of the Erdtree, that Lunar Princess Rani, daughter of Rennala and Radagon,
My wife.
stole a fragment of the Rune of Death.
Okay, yes, please explain the Night of the Black Knives, because it sounds so cool, but I feel like I just did not grasp it when I played, or I feel
It
like I
happened
missed something.
during the golden age of the Erdtree, long before the shattering of the Elden Ring. Someone stole a fragment of the Rune of Death from Malekith, the Black Blade.
As mentioned previously, Malekith was Marika's shadow, and he had sealed destined death in a black blade. Then a fragment, only a fragment, of this Rune of Death was stolen. And once this happened, Malekith went a step further in protecting destined death. He bound the blade within his own flesh, such that none might rob death ever again. It was too late, however. This fragment of the Rune of Death was used immediately, that night, to kill a demigod, Marika's own son, Godwyn the Golden.
That was the first recorded death of a demigod in all history, and it became the catalyst. Soon, the Elden Ring was smashed, and thus sprang forth the war known as the Shattering.
Now, there is a lot of really credible evidence that Marika was behind this plot to have a fragment of the Rune of Death stolen.
But why would she want her own son killed?
There's also a ton of evidence that Marika is behind the entirety of your Tarnished quest, but we'll talk about that in another video.
No, I've heard that theory before. That, yeah.
For now, all you really need to know, in terms of the timeline at least, is this.
No, tell me
After
more.
the marriage of Marika and Radagon, and after a fragment of the Rune of Death was stolen, Marika went on to shatter the Elden Ring, and Radagon attempted to repair it, to no avail. The Elden Ring had been broken into runes, some great and some small.
You know, it's said that Lord Radagon harbored a secret. A famed sculptor of the Erdtree capital was once summoned to render Lord Radagon's likeness in giant stature, when he glimpsed the skeleton in Radagon's closet. And as such, it's said the great statue harbors his secret too.
Of course, the huge twist in Elden Ring is that Radagon is Marika, or depending on what you believe, he became her, for she knew
You could argue that this is the law of regression.
it was going to happen.
In Marika's own words, O Radagon, leal hound of the Golden Order, thou art yet to become me. Thou art yet to become a god. Let us be shattered, both. Mine other self.
You can tell when From Software is keeping something a little bit open-ended, and of everything in Elden Ring's lore, this will also go on to be one of the biggest unknowns as we move forward. For example, the wording, thou art yet to become me. reinforces that Marika and Radagon were two separate entities before the shattering. However, in contrast, there is also evidence that Radagon was always part of Marika. For example, Enya says that
The demigods are each and all the direct offspring of Queen Marika.
but how can this be if Radagon married Renala and had those demigod children? The only way that makes sense is if Radagon was always Marika and he just went over there to seduce Renala long ago. I'll present more concrete theories in the future, but on this matter, the most important thing is, what do you think? While you
I don't know what to think because I don't understand things.
can figure out a ton of Elden Ring's story, not all of it is open to interpretation. Certain things are, and this is one of them. And your interpretation is a big part of what makes this story special. At any rate, the union of Radagon and Marika seems to be a union of two fundamental opposing laws of the Golden Order. We mentioned these laws earlier, actually. There's the law of causality, and Marika is an agent of cause and effect. And there's the law of regression, as Radagon is a character who aspires to be complete and regress together. So I have a theory that forcing these two beings that represent these concepts together would have corrected Marika's deviance. But even so, she was imprisoned in the Erd Tree for the crime of the shattering.
Okay. Okay, things are starting. Okay. Okay, that helps me understand things a bit better.
Marika's trespass demanded a heavy sentence. But even in shackles, she remains a god and the vision's vessel.
The conjoined Radagon and Marika even had two demigod children of their own, Mikola and Millennia. These two children were born afflicted. Mikola was cursed with eternal childhood, and Millennia harbored a horrific rot within. Even so, these two children were both chosen as Empyreans. They were immensely sacred beings and eligible to inherit godhood from the Greater Will. Perhaps the Greater Will was just desperate to find a worthy successor, and indeed in the Shattering War to come, many would try to claim the shards of the Elden Ring, and they would try to take the throne, including, of course, the Tarnished, who returned from their long march at long last, which we'll talk about in the next main lore video. I should probably also mention here that if you become a patron, you'll see upcoming lore videos early, as that's one of the rewards you get if you pledge to the $3 tier. And if you think my channel really adds a lot of value to the Souls games for you to the point where you pledge $20, then in this new tier you'll receive a new mug every 3 months that has a unique design on it, to do with the games by From Software. There are 4 to collect. The first one you'll get is inspired by Dark Souls, then Elden Ring, then Sekiro, and finally Bloodborne. And they all have fantastic art that I worked on with an amazing artist named Chu. But anyway, I figured this is the right place to end this video because the information here is going to be overwhelming. I bet it probably was too overwhelming, you know? It took me ages to commit these names and the relationships they had with other characters to memory, so I hope you guys are doing alright. One thing that helped me a lot was that we designed an enormous mind map with pretty much all of Elden Ring's lore, all of its item descriptions, all of its dialogues, all of the relationships between characters that we can think of. We added all of this together and it helped a ton in learning about the story and visualizing it all. And one day I will make this asset.
I'll say this though, I respect it, but you shouldn't have to do that to get a really good visualization of the story.
Available to you all, because I think after doing it, I think this is the quintessential way to piece together the story, and I think
it shouldn't have to be though.
Giving you guys this asset eventually will make that accessible for people, so I'm really excited about that. I want to thank Absa and Zard for accepting the paid task of helping me put all the raw data into this mind map so that I could better understand everything. I want to thank Paragod for fulfilling all of my footage requests and creating so many cinematic scenes for this video and for you all to enjoy. And I last of all want to thank John Devlin for the incredible thumbnail. And of course, thank you for watching. There are some really exciting things ahead, and I actually believe this might be the best story that From Software have ever put together. I just think not only are there so many amazing item descriptions, but so many of them are impactful. There are so many moments where you piece together the story and have like a eureka moment, and I'm enjoying it so much. But now I'm gonna go and play the game a little bit because I've been editing this video for too long. So, see you next time.
And that was Elden Ring's lore explained. This was a fantastic video. The way in which he conveyed all of the information, the way it flowed together. The parts it was a bit kind of jumpy, but I think that's just because the way in which Elden Ring's lore itself is kind of told, it is going to be a bit jumpy, seeing back and forth a little, and hard to kind of like really tell a concise timeline sort of explanation here. But I think this was a really good video. Like, I'm gonna be watching more Vati. I don't really care how well this performs. This could perform as good or even worse. This could perform bad. I'm still gonna watch Vati because this was really fucking good. This was really well fucking made. Holy shit. Like, this was art. This was artistry. This was chef's kiss. I literally got no complaints about the video. It was super well paced. It left me wanting more from a game that I did not enjoy that much. Like, that's impressive, dude. That tells to how talented Vati is at storytelling, at editing a video and stuff like that. And he was able to get the information conveyed in a way that made it just so intriguing that left me wanting more. So like when I finished Elden Ring, you could tell I just wanted to be fucking done. I wanted to get done with it and just not touch it again, right? But Vati here has made me like, I want to learn more about the lore itself, right? So, Jeff's kiss. I've got nothing else to say here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And they're fucking loud ass cars driving by today. If you guys enjoyed, remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Peace.